My husband's friend is going through a rough time. I am not privy to the details, but his friend is in a really bad spot. I don't mind his friend hanging out, but I like to have a heads up, so I know, before I get home from work, if someone is coming over. I plan our meals with 2 people in mind unless told otherwise. I cook enough, so we have dinner and leftovers for lunch the next day, so we don't have to eat out. Lately my husband's friend has been over a lot, sometimes unannounced and staying for dinner as he is unemployed. His phone has been cut off, no car, it's a whole mess. I told my husband I didn't mind having him over and feeding him, but I needed a heads up, so I knew to make extra. I've also made it a habit of asking my husband if his friend is coming over that night before I leave for work. Yesterday morning I asked my husband if friend was coming over as I had to go to the store to get some things for dinner. My husband said he didn't know. When I left work I called my husband to ask again, he didn't answer, so I grabbed things for dinner lunch for just us 2. Got home and started dinner. My husband comes home with friend in tow. Friend mentions being so hungry and food smells so good. Dude is hard on his luck, so I didn't turn him down and served him food. With what was left, I only had leftovers for one lunch the following day. In the morning I took the leftovers instead of leaving them for my husband, and I told him as I left that I was taking the food. Husband is pretty frustrated that I did that. I told him I asked him in the morning, called him after work, and didn't get a response, so I didn't include his friend as someone who was going to be eating. My husband works by plenty of restaurants, or could have thrown together a sandwich before he left. Apparently I'm making him feel like his friend isn't welcome. I feel I've done nothing more than make his friend feel welcome, feeding him, letting him sleep over, shower at our place, do laundry, etc. AITA. Reactions.
Like, seriously. Not rude, he did you wrong by not having the courtesy to give you pertinent information as soon as he had it. The expectation is that he will get to disrespect you, enjoy the fruits of your labor, and expect you to sacrifice your lunch on his behalf. What a turd.
Not rude. Your husband needs to learn now to communicate and not put everything on you. He's acting like a child.
Not a rude one. Let him be upset. It's not like the friend is going without leftovers, just your husband. But it sounds like you might as well make meals for 3 from now on if you also want leftovers for lunch the next day every day. Your husband or his friend could also just have a sandwich if there isn't enough. You made the meal, so you're entitled to the leftovers, I'd say. Am I the rude one for telling my wife that putting our son to bed was now her job and then moving my bed into a separate room? Sorry about the mouthful title. I tried to be as descriptive as possible. The situation is basically that I, 35 male, and my wife, 29 female, have a 2-year-old son. She is a stay-at-home mother, and I work full-time, usually from 6:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. or so. Being a toddler, my son should generally be sleeping between 11 and 14 hours a day. Therefore, what my wife and I aim for is for him to wake up at 7 a.m., do all the typical daily activities, take a nap starting between 1:30 p.m. and 2 p.m. for 2 hours, and then go to bed again at 8 p.m. This would give him a good 13 hours of sleep a day. I'm typically in charge of getting him to sleep at night, while she obviously puts him down for his afternoon nap. For the past several months, my wife has gotten incredibly lazy with putting him to bed. I understand that it's not always easy, but she has essentially worked out a new system. She waits for him to be utterly exhausted at about 4 p.m., puts him in bed, and then wakes him up between 6 o'clock and as late as 6:30. Therefore, when I try to get him to go to bed between 8 and 9, he's not tired at all. It's basically a horrible wrestling match to get him to stay in bed as he shrieks and cries and bites and doesn't want to sleep because he's simply not tired. It takes me up to 2.5 hours to get him to bed, which is horribly unfun for both of us. Last night I finally told my wife that until she fixes his sleep schedule, I'm not going to clean up her mess anymore. I moved my bed into another room, locked the door, and went to bed as she put him to sleep. This morning, she was exhausted from doing so and in a terrible mood because apparently having to do what I've been doing for months was bad. She told me that I need to be more active in helping out with him, and I responded that I'll happily do so once she actually gets him down for his nap at a reasonable time. I honestly don't think about out of line here, but am I being an ass? Reactions.
Not a rude one. Toddler is a difficult age. Their needs are constantly changing. He might not be tired at 1:30 to 2 o'clock anymore, But your wife is still trying to get him down, which can take much longer if he's not tired, as you well know from the nighttime struggles. Sounds like he's starting to transition out of the daily nap phase. It's a hard milestone on the parents because toddler will get tired without a nap, but too close to bedtime, so you either have to deal with a cranky toddler in the evenings until this passes, or do an earlier bedtime which will cause the kiddo to get up early. Please be patient with each other. Raising a kid is hard on both parents.
This is the answer. Skip the daytime nap and put him to bed earlier in the evening. Napping isn't helping anymore, and lots of kids grow out of daytime naps, especially when home all day versus childcare centers.
This is what I did with my toddler. No more naps, unless he is really tired. He sleeps from 7 p.m. to 8:30 a.m., and I get some time for myself before going to bed.
You're a rude one. Your kid is having some typical sleep struggles. Your wife isn't being lazy with his naps. It sounds like she's having a hard time getting him to actually go to sleep. You're blaming her instead of acting like a parent and trying to work out a solution together. If anyone's being lazy here, it's you.
Right, it seems like kids go through nap struggles all the time. I imagine this kid throws the same tantrum at 1:30 that he's doing at 8. Hence the pushed back nap time. Kids aren't clock, sir. Seems extremely unfair to call her lazy when I can only imagine she is trying. You are the rude one. Parenting requires constant communication. To lock her out at 8 p.m. is wild. Let's not even mention that you really only see your kid between the hours of 5:38 p.m., which isn't fair division of labor. Even if she's a stay-at-home mom.
Am I rude for telling my fiancée she's not the breadwinner if she's not footing the bills in front of our families and friends? My fiancée and I moved in together shortly before we got engaged. Before we did, we discussed how we'd split the housework and bills. 50-50ths down the middle with some wiggle room for when the other needs help. When we moved, it was into her parents' 2-story garage that they converted into basically an apartment. They offered a low rent, $700 total, and pitch in for the electric and internet, so we could save money for our own place and wedding. My fiancée earns more than me, and that's cool. I'm proud of her. Before we moved in together, it always seemed like she was living paycheck to paycheck, and I chalked it up to the apartment she had prior having insane high rent. She stuck to the 50-50ths arrangement at first concerning bills, but she missed often, and I had to remind her about it. Post-engagement, she's back to living paycheck to paycheck, either missing or very late with her part of the rent monthly, the 2 utilities we pay, groceries, late with her car payment. Her parents have talked to me multiple times about rent, and I've covered her missing portion to get us caught up, and then try talking to her. It always turns into her saying we should just move if her parents are going to hound us. I told her we're lucky it's her parents because anywhere else would have kicked our asses out. On top of that, I pay my own bills, do about 65% housework, arrange and pay for most of our dates and vacations, gifts for her, pay most towards our pets. I've suggested a financial coach, but what kicks me is whenever we're around others, she boasts about being the breadwinner since she earns more. Goes on about the stresses of being the main source of income, all the hours she has to work to pay all our bills. I was letting it slide until a few days ago we were at a get-together. She and her sister started up again about her being the breadwinner. Her sister said something to the effect of her ex-boyfriend had a hard time being with someone who earned more, and my fiancé went, "Good thing Op doesn't mind me bringing home the pay." I told her just because she earns more doesn't make her the breadwinner when she blows it all on herself, and I'm paying most the bills. She's embarrassed now and keeps saying I made her look bad and got her in trouble with her parents because they want to see what she spends her money on each month, but I don't think I did anything wrong. Am I rude? Reactions.
Not a rude one, though you're focusing on the wrong problem. Forget perception. You need to sort out her financially responsibility before you marry, or things aren't going to get better.
I have put the brakes on any more wedding planning until she either sees a financial coach or a therapist to figure out what's up with her way of doing things.
Not a rude one, but why are you walking into this with your arms wide open? Like, that's a huge red flag. Do you want financial issues all your life because she can't get herself together? That's the real issue here. Run while you can.
No, I have put brakes on wedding planning unless she gets help with her finances and attitude. Either she does and we work through it, or throw us both back in with the other fish.
I really think her getting help is important, but if you are staying with her, having her open her finances to you to see what is going on is also important. You need to know what is going on now so you know what to look for in the future. This should be a discussion and not a demand, but the fact that you have had to cover her half of joint expenses, and apparently not reimbursed multiple times, with no explanation, has been a violation of your agreement and thus of your trust in her.